good?
Yeah, everything's good. You
Oh,
good?
there's one right. Hey, I'm interviewing Chris Jenkins soon. Do you have any questions for him? Come on, bro. You gotta have some questions. No?
Dude, what are you doing? You can't talk
Yeah,
to anyone.
What do you want?
Big thank you to my camera crew for helping me out with that skit. We did that at Sea Life Aquarium, and honestly, I embarrassed myself quite a bit, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and it turned out really well. So hopefully you enjoyed the first part of that. Part of the reason I did that skit was because our next guest on the channel, our fourth guest, will be Chris Jenkins, who's widely known for producing Surf's Up, and we do talk about that, but not to take away from anything else, because we do delve into his career, and he's worked on a lot of shows in the industry which a lot of us grew up with. So I do hope you all enjoy. I'm currently trying to get monetized at the moment, so I'd really appreciate if you could like and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments who'd like me to interview in the future so I can reach out to them. Other than that, I hope you like the skit. I hope you enjoy the interview, and I'll see you guys at the end. Enjoy.
All right, that's all good. Chris, thank you very much for joining me today's episode. It's an absolute honor to have you here. Welcome. How have you been the last couple of weeks since we last spoke?
Well, thank you for that introduction. I'm good. I'm busy, and it's always good, especially at this time of life. Otherwise, you just start to nod off in the chair and snore and things like that. And the kids write things on you when you're asleep. So
that's pretty
good.
cute.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think okay. So, I've definitely got on you. So as I've lost for words at the moment. Wow,
That's
great.
That's okay. You'll find them. You'll find them. They're there.
So I found you, as you obviously know, for the audience at home, I found you through Surf's Up, which is pretty funny because that's the first movie role you started and produced yourself. We will get to that point. We'll put a pin in that. But
Okay.
I want to start off with, couldn't you please delve into your any main life experiences when you were younger that got you into the creative industry, whether it's like for special effects or producing? What were like some of the main experiences that were like, yep, I'm going to do this career?
I think it was always the unabashed pandering for affection. Really.
Jeez, oof. Oh, sorry to hear.
Please
That's
like me because I can draw pictures.
I'm here for you now. I know it's a bit late, but I'm here for you now.
This is therapy, right? No, I mean, I don't know what does that necessarily, but I was always drawing, or making something, and if there was something that around that seemed like might be a good thing to make a sculpture out of, like my mum's aluminium foil, I would pinch some and make models from it, and I was just always like that. I always made things from being when I was very, very young, and I think the storytelling part of all of this comes together with my dad, who was a wonderful storyteller, and in that Celtic way would walk you into the story with anecdotes along the way, so you were already relaxing into a world as he was telling them, and he would say things like, I'm off the top of my head, I'm a vague memory of when he said, so I'm going to tell you a story about the cat I used to have. And I was like 4 years old, my brother 6 years old. All right, Dad, that's great, tell us what it is. Well, his name was Isaiah. And we would first say, why was his name Isaiah, Dad? Well, one was one Isaiah than the other bugger. And then it would get rolling from there, He was always making things up in the story world, elements and fragments, jokes and ideas, and even songs sometimes that just, I think, were enchanting to any young kid. And so, though I didn't know I'd be writing scripts later in my career, I kind of followed a path where I came back to being my dad, which is what we all do, right?
Oof, no, I'd make a comment on that, but I mean,
Oh, all right, okay, yeah. It's one-way therapy
yeah,
today,
yeah.
so
Sorry,
we'll get back
sorry,
to
I
it. Yeah.
can't give too much on my side. Oof. Jeez. I mean, so that's really nice to hear because it was more rather than um, it was more accumulative experiences and something that was more ingrained into your lifestyle rather than this happened and this happened. So that's really nice to hear. I think that's quite sweet. Um, so then explain the lead up to you doing your degree in scientific illustration to being scouted. Sorry, that's I spoilt it. Wow, jeez. Um, being
No, no,
picked up to Disney. Like,
yeah, the lucky series of incidents, and they were lucky, were provoked initially by the lasting affection I have for animals and anything to do with wildlife or countryside or anything else. And I was one of those kids. I could lead you safely across the moor, but ask me to take you from one street to the next in a city, and I would get you lost. I love the natural world, and I knew it, and I could tell you where the foxes' dens were, and I could tell you where the best fishing spots in the brook were, where we used to tickle for fish under these rocks. And it was, I mean, it sounds halcyon in a way, but what was happening at the same time was that the valley I grew up in, which was a coal mining valley, the Rhondda Valley, the main coal mining valley actually was by repute, was in transition. It was becoming a beautiful place again. And so it was awakening in a sense as I was growing up. And that led me ultimately to wanting to paint and draw animals more than anything else. And from there, I ended up with quite a few incidents in between at Middlesex Polytechnic, as it was then, or Middlesex University, as it is now, studying animals, anatomy, and drawing both the insides of animals and the insides of people, and I that's that's when the
jeez.
story bit started to take over again, because I didn't really see that as a career choice. So I did a college thesis on an artist you might know called Alan Lee, who is
Definitely
very
heard of it.
much involved, one of the art directors on, or the conceptual designers, I should say, Lord of the Rings. And I met him, and he was really encouraging, and he showed me what he was doing, and that got me off another pattern of drawing and painting more fantasy things, and from there, telling stories. At the same time, I happened to bump into an old friend who I knew from earlier on my course, but had gone into a separate sort of specialization, and I bumped into him in the photography room of Middlesex, and he told me that Disney were in town.
Ooh.
Now, this is another thing that I should have mentioned when I was very little, which was anytime there was any Disney animation on, and at that point we were talking all the way up to Black Cauldron, I think.
Yep.
But anytime there was anything on, and they were only snippets, we never really saw the movies there very much. Anyway, my mum would shout out in the street for it was like the call of the wild, Chris, and I would come running from somewhere and watch this animation and just be completely enveloped in it. And that also was adding to storytelling, though I didn't know it. And it was adding to the fun and the beauty of exceptional animation. I mean, just fantastic. So when I bumped into my friend Graham Burt at Middlesex, and he said Disney were in town and they were looking for people. I mean, I was a little engaged in that thought, obsessed perhaps, and then I couldn't really do much about it until when I was at my degree show. Someone from Disney saw my work, and they were by that point sort of a lot of animal paintings and a lot of fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
And together, I think it created an interest, and I was asked to come in for an interview for Roger Rabbit.
Nice.
Didn't know anything about it at that point, of course. But yeah, I got the job in the interview, which is the only time that's ever happened. It was lovely. In truth, I think Disney were looking at that point for anybody that could hold a pencil. And after 4 years in college, I was well qualified at holding
Yeah.
pencils.
Same.
But what I discovered was in going on to Roger Rabbit and becoming an in-betweener, an effects in-betweener, I had an aptitude for animation that I'd never tested at all. And things quickly went from good to much better. And though I started off as an in-betweener, which is an entry-level position, I was an animator within a few months. And yeah, got to animate on a movie that still, when you see it to this day, it gives me a thrill because I can remember. I have like this attachment of certain scenes to certain times. But it's a great movie,
Yeah.
and it was a hell of an experience for a young kid from art college.
Well, we'll touch on that subject then. What were some of the scenes that you worked on in that movie, for example? Like, I could probably picture it in my head. I could probably just add it on later.
Well, look, we all did. Everybody in the department did
Okay.
a massive amount of tones and shadows,
Okay.
which was very nice in all respects, and learning how to control the contours on things. And honestly, I was good at that because I had done that in my painting, right?
Yeah.
But it was very good when it came to Jessica Rabbit. And
Jeez.
you knew I
Yeah.
was going to say that, didn't
Yeah.
you?
Yep.
And
Very
also
specific
at the
wording.
same
Yeah.
time, in the Ink and Paint Club, she has all these little sparkles going off, and somebody had to draw those because
Oh, jeez.
you don't get anything for free in 2D animation, and so I didn't do all of the sparkle scenes, but I did a few, and I like them very much, and I still look at them, and it gives me that thrill in more ways than one.
Yeah.
It was a great opportunity. It really was. And then there was weasel smoke.
Yeah.
There was a Roger Rabbit shot, pretty long, and it's Roger trying to have his handcuffs cut off
Yeah.
by
No.
Eddie, and
Yeah.
they're in the Ink and Paint. No, they're in the bar, and in a little room at the back
Yeah.
of the bar, and there's a light swinging. Now that meant you didn't have a consistent light source. So as a 2D animator, you had to follow where the light was going, and that's a lot more difficult. But I loved it. I just loved it.
Would you say it was a challenge to have 2D on a 3D environment?
Yeah,
Because
it was.
my brain is slow. I don't know how that stuff works, right? You do. You got more
Well, I
wrinkles
mean,
than my brain.
well, I got more wrinkles too. The the thing was that the effects that we did were only ever going to be sleight of hand, right? You weren't going to make
Okay.
it really real like CG does today.
Mm.
But I think that was its charm. I think that there was something to that where you could do just enough, if you were good, to make it look like it blended in, made the character blend in more, but not so much to make it a perfect, other reality. And I think for that movie, it worked well because we were talking about cartoons. We were talking about the old 2D cartoons alive and living in our world as well as their own. And yeah, it was great. The process of doing it was intensive because we had a photograph. Literally, imagine old photographic paper, not a print, right?
Yeah.
Or I mean, an old photographic print, big, large, and we had one of those down as the base plate, and that was where you started drawing on your piece of paper. That was no, sorry. Then you had the character, and if there's two characters, you have two pieces of paper. Then you put your paper over the top to start drawing in the tones and shadows to blend them in. So you're looking back and judging and guiding the light to look like it belongs in the scene. And then you have to add another one on top of that, and then another one on top of that, and another one on top of that. So before long, I think I had pretty good muscles in my left arm by the end of that movie because you have to flip all those things. But listen, I mean, it's funny to look back on it because in a way it is really quite archaic now.
Yeah.
I mean, that was 1988, but it was a great experience and a great way to learn. And
I
some
mean,
amazing character animators were working on the characters. So I was sort of like a learner driver, learning with a really good artist by my side in a sense. Yeah, it was great.
well, since you mentioned that the archaic side of it, how was the transition between paper to digital? Because you've definitely been through that. Was that
Yeah.
like difficult for you? Or just kind of seamless?
No, actually, by the time the digital stuff was coming in, well, it was coming in all the way from Little Mermaid. There was some 3D, and then on Beauty and the Beast there was some 3D. I think Basil of Baker Street had a CG element to it, but that was really just printing things out and then cell painting it like
Okay. Yep.
with a drawing. But those things were evolving all the way through. On Hunchback of Notre Dame, there were CG buildings, and there was a CG. I think they call it palanquin on Beauty and the Beast, the sort of
Okay.
thing you carry a rich person in,
Oh yeah, yep.
And this thing got up on its legs and started to walk away. So there was some of that. So it was slowly evolving, I would say. These things were coming into scope, and as then an effects supervisor, which I became at Disney, I was able to see firsthand how things looked as elements and how they looked on the screen. Then ultimately, when I went to go see them in scene planning in the down the road departments, and it was all great. It was cool. I mean, the difficulty in those days wasn't the CG and it wasn't the 2D. It was putting them together to look like they belonged in the same universe to an extent, and that the drawing styles or the graphic styles didn't differ so much that you were thrown out, because that was always your battle, right? Don't have the audience wonder, go, wait a minute, what's that? And they're out of the story and they're not thinking anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough because it's still a lot of things do look seamless still. I mean, I can look at those movies and you can be like, oh yeah, that's a green screen for sure. But it still looks relatively clean for the time, and even today, it still works pretty seamlessly. It's like, oh yeah, I can tell, but it's not egregious. You can't really pinpoint it, if I will, or if I may.
Well, I think Disney, as they still do, they have the ability to bring in the best people to work on these things, and really the way that the studio grew from Little Mermaid, and it just expanded so quickly. I think that I know I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it was about 150 people that worked on Mermaid, the main artistic staff.
Jeez.
And you look at what it's become, right? And we were at that point we were going to do a movie every 4 years, as it always had been. And then Jeffrey Katzenberg was saying, how about we speed that up? And then it was trying to get a movie out every year with the smaller crew, so that we were training a whole bunch of people to make make our output that much faster and richer. Yeah, it was a good time. It's a good time because it was like a story in itself. It was evolving, and there was definitely a second act, and the third act was a little bit messy for me, but it was a good time, and I really still owe a huge debt of gratitude to Disney and to the artists, particularly that I got to be around and picked up tricks from, and yeah, learn from the best, really. I was working with Joe Grant towards the end of my stay at Disney, and Joe, if you know, was the guy behind the design of the witch in Snow White.
Yes.
So he was in his 90s when I got to know him. What a guy. I was like I was working with Gandalf, and he wrote the story for Dumbo.
Oh, nice. Very
He
nice.
had a lot to do, I believe, with Lady and the Tramp. He was just a marvelous fella. and it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah,
He
that's
knew all the
fair.
history too, so the anecdotes were astonishing.
Mm. I mean, he must be proud that like someone like you took over and was doing well. I I understand it's a team effort. Don't get me wrong, but I want to compliment you
I
because I'm
certainly
talking to
wouldn't say
you.
I certainly wouldn't say I took over. What happened was I worked my way up through Disney, realizing in my arrogance that I wanted to do more with story, that I felt that there were bad choices being made. And ultimately there were no bad choices. It was just what I've come to understand is that there are distinct choices that you make, independent choices, idiosyncratic choices really. And anyway, I was on this path and I couldn't get a toehold to actually direct something, except for in the last few weeks while I was still at the studio. This was 2002, 2000, late 2001, something like that. I had pitched this movie that was a really very cool idea. I can't say too much about it. I now realize because I think that there will be legal things, but I
Damn
can
it.
say that I worked on it, and it's in the best development art, and it was being delivered to me to
Very nice.
create a movie,
Mm.
and it was phenomenal, right? Worked with some great story people, put a pitch together, presented it to Pam Coates, who was now leading the studio. She loved it, and we were going to talk about
Mm.
advancing into the next
Mm.
level on Monday. On Monday, I heard, and I have to say this quite delicately,
Okay, all right.
it
Take your
was
time. It's all
not
good.
it was not picked up because there were some copyright issues
Okay. Cool.
that were promised to me that they would be taken care of. So I had to forget about it. And at round about the very same time, actually, that I was Sandy Rabins from Sony Animation was talking to me about would I like to go there.
Mm.
And I was seeing a certain and there was, I think anybody would tell you this, at that point at Disney, there was a certain dysfunction that's like, I don't know I'm gonna survive this well. Either I choose or
Mm.
they choose, and so it was definitely time for me
Yeah.
to move on.
Mm. Has that story you can't mention, has that been made already? Because you hinted at it.
No,
No?
no, it hasn't.
Okay. Okay.
It was a very good book, very much of its time. It could still
Okay.
work, but
Ooh.
no, it has never found its way into the light.
Damn. Okay, now I'm gonna have to go find it after this. Just searching. Just searching. Yeah, I won't, I won't. But like from that point on, you had a great opportunity with your first producing role with Surf's Up.
Yeah.
Um and honestly that was amazing. Like again, that's how I found you.
It was born slightly out of the frustrations of not being able to complete anything
Mm.
at Disney. And I had always worked on something that was in production, so leading up to the last few years, there was always something to show at the end of a few
Mm.
years, even though it takes a long time to do these movies, as you know. But I went to Sony, and it was the very beginning of it. So I was asked by Sandy Rabins and Penny Cox to involve myself in everything. I was primarily there to open season,
Yep, yep. You
which was
gotta
fine. And I actually I said that I wouldn't, because they asked me at the time, well, should we do open season or Surfs Up as the first movie? And I said I would not do Surfs Up right now because having been an effects artist, I knew how difficult waves were, and that stuff
Oh,
had never been
okay.
tackled in CG before, right?
Mm, mm,
So I said, I think we need to wait on that, but get the ball rolling, get the development happening right away. And I love the ocean, and there was but this story was always there while I
mm,
was tinkering away with the early days of open season, and that was much more of a familiar environment.
mm,
And so I guess I was drawn to Surf's Up, and I made a decision at some point, would you mind if I took it on? The reason being that it had been in development, it had had a story written, but it was very much a kind of a Scooby-Doo environment.
yep,
The
yep. Makes
penguins
sense.
were hang gliding and they were and they were riding beach buggies, and it was and it seemed to be everywhere at this point. It was along the lines of a Romeo and Juliet story. And if I saw another Romeo and Juliet story, I think my head would have exploded. Because I'd worked on Romeo and Juliet back at Disney and sort of resurrected that one into becoming whatever it became eventually. But Surf's Up was different in the end, largely because it wasn't working. It just wasn't working. I mean, I think that the approach to any show is like, do you feel something about it? Is there some kind of, does it create energy in you when you look at a poster, or you look at a page or a description of a character? And I went to Sandy after the first version had been shut down, and I said, look, I can see something in this. Do you mind if I try something? By that point, I had been talking to surfers. I had read a lot more. I always loved the ocean anyway. And so I thought, surfers are kind of like rock stars. They love making documentaries about themselves. And I was thinking Spinal Tap as well, right? And like Spinal Tap's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why not? Everyone was doing mockumentary, but they weren't doing the kind of long form documentary mockumentary. And so
that's great. That's great.
I thought, I would like to try this because I could see it. But it was all based on what I'd learned at Disney, which is the best moments in movies are when the character isn't given a rehearsed line. I think live action's like that too, to be quite honest. And I do love improvisation. It was actually invented or discovered all the way back on Bambi because the little kid that was playing Thumper was he was in a recording session doing his lines, and it was at the end of the day, and he was pretty tired. And the line that's read to him, and you'll probably remember the line when I do this, the line that's read to him is, Thumper, what did your father tell you this morning? And he goes, because he's tired, right? In reality, he's tired. If you can't say something nice, I don't know if I want to do this. The rabbit is now pulling his ears. Don't say nothing at all. So it wasn't an acted line. It was real from a very tired little boy. And I think it was Frank Thomas said that that's where animation came alive. Because now you had something that was a pure performance. It wasn't, we all know what, acting school kids can sound like sometimes, although I've worked with some great ones. But it's very forced. It's on a certain path, and it's good, but it's you can tell that it's not reality. With this line, it just made that rabbit real. It made the world real, and it's a beautiful movie that I still, I am slack-jawed still when I look at it. Despite the fact that the raccoon eats the baby raccoons at the end of the movie. If you've ever seen that. It's true. It's true. Look at it. After the fire.
All right. Rewatching time done.
So, Surf's Up was it was essentially a story about my path coming into the film business. A young kid from a podunk environment, some off the grid place, who enters the big time and who stumbles and falls until he makes it by lessons learned, right? And I did meet a lot of really wonderful mentors, as I mentioned, and so that general through line was there for me. That was initially represented, and then I said, "How about mockumentary?" And I got some looks.
I do.
because it hadn't been done, and I think all the elements of how difficult it is to do that started to come into focus, which was, well, you have to write a movie, but you have to make it seem like it's just happened and you've just captured it. But we did it in the end by brilliant acting from Shia and Jeff Bridges particularly. Well, everybody was brilliant, but it was, they had the central relationship, and if you remember that in the board scene together,
Yep.
that setup was there. There was an old canteen table pretending to be a surfboard, and two brilliant actors on either side of it, acting out the scene that probably went on for about an hour.
Yeah.
So we took the best stuff and made that long scene. So yeah, that was great. That was the proof that came later. Yeah.
So that made it more sound like a conversation that you were having the whole time in the studio, rather than like speaking lines and whatnot. So that's really nice, actually.
Yeah, and recording more than one person at once, because that was essential. When we could, we assisted, although we didn't really, I don't think we got it 100% of times. The main actors would be together.
Yep. Okay.
Which was particularly funny with Chicken Joe and Cody, John Heder and Shia. Wonderful. And you never knew what John was going to come up with. But all of it wasn't like we just went, oh, let's just do anything and we put it together. It wasn't that at all. It was like Chris Guest does. You establish story points that you have to hit, marks that you have to hit, and then you build performances towards that point. And when you capture eccentricities, accidents, including people laughing off screen, you keep it. You don't get rid of it. And then particularly with my kids, when my youngest daughter Reese was Katie in the movie, and Chris Buck's son was also in it. He was Arnold. And then
okay. Now I won't see the movie the same. Now that's awesome.
I can never
actually.
see it the same. but and then Jeff Ranjo, the head of story, his tiny little son was it Midge? I can't remember now.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. The scenes with the baby penguins, and they're like talking to the camera. Yeah.
And that came late because I'd said to Chris, we need a point of view. Like comedy is great when there's a third person in the scene that's just watching and going, what the hell is going on here? If you look at Mr. Bean, you'll see that a lot. But we had great scenes, we had a great structure going, but we didn't have enough fun. So we thought putting three kids who would be witnessing this, and they'd have an opinion because these are the best surfers in the world, and they were aspiring young kids. But Chris really did it well with his son, because he said, tell me about your favorite Lego gun. Because he was a little guy, right?
Really?
Like, yeah. And he said, well, he would have, rocket launchers, and he would have this, and he would that. And all you do is you change the question, you know?
That
so
actually,
it's not going like, what's your favorite surfboard? Because a surfboard is a surfboard, right? It's not going to have detachable guns.
Yeah.
But when Chris was outstanding in that, just asked that question. And then for me, similarly, but not as intelligent, Reese was answering in a beautiful 6-year-old way. And I've got a DAT recorder and a mic, and it's all going really well. We've got loads of material. And then my cat came into the room, jumped up on the bed beside her, and farted. And and it was a silent but deadly one. So that's when Reese said, I think he needs to go to the bathroom. And we had to keep it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we had so much fun on that movie. I mean, it turned out well. I'm still proud of it, but it was, the fun along the way was exceptional. I think everybody says that, actually, that worked on it. So yeah, that was a good one.
How do you feel that it's now like a classic? It's always resurging on the internet. Everyone talks about it. Like, it still stands up today. How do you feel about that?
It's strange, isn't it? I'm not that egotistical to keep checking in on it all the time. But every now and again, I'll see something, and somebody's done a college thesis on how Surf's Up represents the woke mindset. Really? It wasn't even a word back in 2006. intelligent, very intelligent treatise on the significance of surf's up, and you look at it and go, well, good luck on you. I guess.
Ooh.
I'm not gonna say
Oh
no.
no, can't release this anymore. No. Oof.
But there are then the people you meet along the way. Like I was getting a haircut one day, and a young kid in there, he was about 17, tall guy, muscular, and really nice, but quiet in that way that teenagers can sometimes be. And I was a stranger to him. But we chatted a little, and he said, and he asked me what I did, and I said, I work in animation, and I worked on this movie. Don't know if you saw it. It's called Surf's Up. He lit up.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm basing my entire career on that movie. He said, I'm going to be a coach in a college in Washington. Yeah. And I have to say, and Chris and Ash both tell me the same thing, that occasionally, being quite often really over the 20 or so years since, we'll meet people who are inspired in some way to change their lives over Surf's Up. And I think it's because the message ultimately was very, very true. We weren't telling a sort of a false or giving a false moralization. We were telling it like we thought reality or truth was, and the truth was very important. It was a buzzword, and I know it sounds terribly grand, but we tried to make everything true. The way the actors performed, the way the backgrounds looked, the way that we took surfing seriously and went surfing ourselves. I nearly drowned, and so did quite a few other people. but at least knowing what it feels like to fall off a board gave you a perspective when you're either directing, producing, or definitely animating. But the message came across, and I think it's, the message of, look, don't compete all the time. It's an art. It's, follow your heart, stop and smell the roses, when at the very end, the reporter rushes up to Cody and says, so you lost the competition. What did you feel like? And he says, I'm done talking about myself, man. I'm just going to go have some fun. And then Chicken Joe, they say to him, so how does it feel now you've won the championships? I won? Great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can write that in a script, and I'm sure it wouldn't have been approved. But because we were embracing improvisation so much, and John Heder answered the question right from character. It was true to Chicken Joe. He didn't know or care that he won. He was having a good time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's wholesome. That's the whole thing that's quite fascinating as well.
The what thing? Sorry.
Sorry, it's fascinating. Learning all this, it's like now I'm going to rewatch the movie, and I'm going to be like, I see this completely differently because I got your perspective on it and how you wanted it to be, how it came out. And the thing I find fascinating is you follow movie tropes, story tropes.
Yep.
But it worked out very well that it didn't feel like a story trope. It felt like you as a person, like as your own individual. You can attach yourself to Cody and be like, yeah, that's me.
Well, it wasn't contrived. Like I said, it was true to the characters. Not like a movie about surfers and wrestlers. I could mention, but I'm not going to. I think
I'm going to mention that. I'm going to mention that.
I think that, look, Chris, Ash, and I were very, very close, including having arguments about, what's the right thing to do. But we were very close and really believed in it. And they're two great guys who are like brothers. And I was really lucky to work with them both. Ash had worked on Toy Story 2. He was taken off it at a certain point because other people wanted to direct it. And Chris, of course, has gone on to produce, I don't know, some movie about ice princesses or something. What's it called? Frozen? No, Frozen. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Chris is amazing and an amazing artist too. Ash is a phenomenal writer, musician, and artist. He makes me sick. I need to punch him more.
That's all right. Just
No, it
remember,
was
it's
a
a team
great
effort.
experience.
Team effort at
It,
the end of the day.
it was, yeah. It was a great team effort.
Well, look, you mentioned wrestling. Now I have to ask, what's the deal with the Surf's Up 2? What's the deal?
Chris, Ash, and I had all gone on to other things
Yeah.
when that little nugget was conceived. But I think if the success of Surf's Up is that it was, it's penguin surfing, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not that true. But we were true to the characters we'd invented, and wanted to have a believable world that you could fall into. I actually thought of it like I want this movie to be like a summer vacation. I want you to go on holiday with this one and just be there for a while. With Surf's Up 2, I think that they completely left the ethos behind. They had the
If you
techniques and they
if
had
you want
a
me
lot
to
of the
say it,
machinery.
if you want me to
Sorry.
say it first, so you
Oh,
don't have to
yes,
say
please
it.
do. Yes.
So from what I know, it's WWE had contacted Sony to be like, "Hey, let's do a movie about wrestling," kind of deal. Yeah, I broke the ice on that. There you go.
Yeah, they wanted to be involved in some way on some movie, and I think Surf's Up got the short stick, and it happens all the times in these movies, and it was made for a commercial reason, and I think you see the effect of it. I don't blame any of the people that worked on it and worked on it hard, I'm sure, but it's simply it was antithetical to what Chris, Ash, and I were trying to do.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll make it a bit more lighthearted then. We'll throw some quick fire
Yes, please.
questions
Yes,
at
please.
you.
Yeah.
Which effects? I'm including your entire history. I
Yeah.
don't care if you choose the same thing. Which effects are you most proud of that you've ever worked on?
Well, it would have to
Or
be the
animation?
waves in Surf's
Yep.
Up.
Okay.
As indirect, 'cause I was producing then, but I gave an early pitch to the Sony guys, who are all geniuses and got brains the size of a small city. The pitch was, this can't be a simulation.
Okay.
In animation, everything has a life, and so the waves themselves we must evoke the power of the ocean, which doesn't mean that you just go and and the wave's gone, right? You can sort of, from the outside in, you can imagine the sort of the surface motion of an ocean wave. If you sit with it, you can see that. With the true thing about all effects is that there's an energy pushing inside the thing, and it has and beyond that, it has a life, not unlike ballet. And this is, of course, it's present in great character animation. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to have animation. It would look best. The best animation you could hope for is to make it completely lifelike. That's not what it is. It is the embodiment of life. It is a metaphor, all sorts of things that we find in life, but it is not replicating reality.
Yeah.
And when that is done, you can see it, and it's not that great. But effects is, you wouldn't necessarily think that, but it's the same thing.
No.
And like music can make a crescendo in a scene, make all the difference to how you're feeling about something. Effects, animation.
It did. I
do
meant
the
that
same
as more
thing.
a general, not specifically effects, but that's all right.
Yeah.
That's okay. What is your favorite
No.
movie?
Oh, I was going to answer.
No, you go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say that the favorite effects animation I ever did is probably on Aladdin. And
yes.
it's the dragon breathing fire in one of the events. Fire turning into three girls dancing.
Yep.
Oh, and then that takes me to Hunchback of Notre Dame, because I did the Esmeralda dancing in the flames. That probably is my favorite.
Okay.
That's probably the last thing I did. That is the last thing I did as well. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the fire in that movie was absolutely insane. Honest, I like that just because of the imagery. Personally, I mean, I like all the movies, most Disney movies, but like that imagery absolutely takes the cake. So you did well. I mean, team effort again. I don't want to give you a ego. So team effort, team effort.
No, heavens above.
What was your favorite movie to work on?
Definitely Surf's Up.
Yep. Okay. What movie? Oh,
Go
go.
on.
You were gonna answer. You were gonna answer that. So
I was gonna say that the most. It's not the most recent movie I did. I made a movie for a very small budget with all of the associated difficulties in doing that with a wonderful Canadian company called Atelier,
okay. Yep.
based in Montreal. And I love all the people there. I think a lot of them have moved on now since, unfortunately. I think it was an oversight to let that happen because they were a great team. But I worked on 10 Lives with them, and I had so much fun. I was directing from this seat on this desk because, you know, that's how things have become these days. Certainly since lockdown, and we all found Zoom and got a lot more familiar with talking to people from a long distance away. But they were a great team, and regardless of the fact and the truth that we didn't have the budget that we would have liked to have gone several stages further in perfecting everything, we didn't have time. We didn't have resources. It was such a joy to work on because you couldn't. I think possibly because you couldn't waffle over the details too much. You just had to get on with it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, what does work about the movie, and there are always tropes in every movie these days. I don't think there's any original story anymore. But we did manage to get something that was sort of beautiful in a slightly old-fashioned way, and it's a story that really connects with people when they see it. And this is where my ego does kick in, and I start to look at YouTube and you know, people have comments. That's a silly thing to do. But if you actually see the movie and see the movie with a bunch of people, it's a good movie. It's a good, heartfelt movie that people love, and it's doing very well in France right now. So I'm glad about that. It's also had a struggle to get out into the theaters because of our distribution woes that we have in America right now, and to some extent across the world. But it's I think it's coming out in America next year. I'm not sure when it'll be in Oz, but you know.
Fingers crossed.
But it's a good one.
Yeah, fingers crossed it comes out.
It will come out.
Yeah,
like I said, it's opened in Poland, and I think it was in South America, and it's opened in France now. And again, every time anyone sees it, they love it. In fact, it was this is still a phenomenon to me. It was chosen to be at Sundance this year.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was kind of like, wow, that's a big deal. And there's a lot of waxing lyrical from, you know, my associates who are critiques, who actually love it. And there's a lot of good things said about it. So very happy with that.
What movie do you enjoy most rewatching that you personally worked on? Again, that
I'm
could
sorry
be any...
to be boring, but it surfs up again.
Yeah,
you know?
that's fine. That's fine. If you love that movie, you love that movie, man. Like
only because we put so much into it.
Yeah. Okay.
When you see it, and I think this is what anybody does, they see the little things that you forgot about. You know.
Yeah. No. That makes sense. Now this could be the same answer.
I still haven't been able to pick up on the number of spaceships that Ash Brannon sprinkled throughout the movie in different places. They're like little flying saucers here, there, and everywhere.
In Surf's Up,
I never see it. Pardon?
In Surf's Up. I didn't even know that. What the? Okay. All right.
Yeah. I know.
All right. It's time. Oh,
yeah.
Now I'm gonna watch out for that. All right. Next question. Is there anything that you worked on that you thought would not end up working well, but turned out being great? Is that Surf's Up again?
No, I knew we had something great from very early on.
Okay.
I was quite arrogant about it in a way, but I wasn't arrogant. I was thrilled. I was like a kid that's just being shown the new toy room. I think when I knew less, there were Disney movies that I thought, I don't know, is this going to work? But most of the time I was just animating and, you know, on the boards doing the thing. So I didn't have much time to think about it.
Okay.
There's a new movie coming out. I just finished. I was brought in at the last moment as a director to get it done. Basically, they didn't have any animation done. They didn't have an animatic together. But the movie that's called Sneaks, it'll be out early next year.
Okay.
Is about sneaker culture and sneakers that are alive and have a world of their own.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was a chance that the concept itself would transcend beyond where we were, because talk about budget issues. Oh my God. But it came together pretty well, and it's a good story. There's a lot of choices in there I wouldn't make if I could sit back and say you know, have more of what I normally would do. But picking up what was already done and then try to assemble it is a little bit like finding all the jigsaw puzzle pieces that have fallen over the years under the couch, and finding them again and making a cohesive film out of them. But it came together well, and there's some lovely performances in it, and it's fun. I think I like it.
I thought you were going to mention your movie you're working on at the moment, The Arc of the Aardvark.
Oh gosh, no!
Yeah, I thought you were going to mention that, to be honest.
No, well, I'm not working on it at the moment. I think that I've got a lot of friends at that studio. I love them to death, but I haven't worked on that movie for a very long time. Not since probably 2013 was the last time I worked on it.
Really? It's that old?
Yeah, it's been kicking around. It's a small studio trying to find the funds to make a grand vision, a worthy vision. But no, I helped early on when I was when they were looking at how do we make the story work more. They've had other people on it since. I am glad to have helped, and I'm even gladder that they gave me a credit. I'm not sure it's earned, but if they say it is, I'm very glad about it. I don't know where it's at even right now, so I just wish them the best of luck. I love them. I mean, I would go and work on it again if they asked. I just haven't been on it for a while.
That's fair enough. All right. Well, I think the next question would be something around, where do you think animation is going in the future? Because we have AI becoming more prevalent with animation, right? We look at, for example, Into the Spider-Verse. They use AI for in between frames, smear frames, from what I've learned. I'm not sure if that's accurate. But then there are studios that are using or wanting to use AI to make complete movies. How do you think that will work out?
Not good, ultimately.
Yeah.
I think using it as a technique, production technique, that's what we've always done as computers have got more powerful, and we've used the tools that they provide in the making of something. But as for the conceiving of something, and I can hear people arguing against me when I say this, but we're looking at the moment at AI voices to just basically read the script and, hey, you've got the voices, all good, let's go, right? Let's start animating. You will get something. You might get TV out of that. You might get a sort of a ribald kind of zany comedy out of that. That's all one tone, and like a lot of TV is, it's like drives me up the wall actually. But it's like just noise, right? It's fast action. Young kids really love it, so I'm not putting it down. It's just it ain't for me. When you're doing a feature animation, you are, and as a director particularly, you're always nuancing things. So it's not louder, quieter, faster, slower. I have seen that done. Not a fan of it. But really directing with, and you can think of it, I think of any live action director, you're working with the characters to say, look, what I'm really trying to find here is this pain, this depth. it's not crying exactly, but it's anguish, and the guy doesn't want to say it, so the subtext comes out in the little faltering tones, and
I completely understand. Yeah.
so just on that level, how if it's in the subtleties, right? It's in the details. You will get sad, but it's the equivalent of drawing a frowny face, right? As opposed to great animation. Glenn Keane always said that you animate a character from the inside out. That's not putting lines on a paper and then you're moving those lines to get an effect. It's inside. And his drawings, man, are they expressive. So he's trying to find that thing inside to bring it out onto the screen, and that's where you get like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, or Little Mermaid,
So
right?
good, yeah, yeah, so
Incredible
good.
examples. They transcend the pencil lines because the intention behind it is possibly a bigger skill than the drawing of it. You hope it goes together, but you know,
True.
it's like that. And so in voice performance, I know I have a relative, he's an amazing actor himself, but he's been asked recently, because everyone's looking for work, to record a series of things, and then AI will take them all, you know, phonemes or whatever, and just put it together, and you can get anything from it. But it's still got to be directed, and it still has to be driven at. Now, if I'm going to somebody who's got the AI palette, let's say, and as a director, I'm saying, no, I want it more like this. How much harder is it to assemble that rather than to take it from an actual living, breathing person who, by the way, in getting a delivery of a line wrong, might have opened up another universe of possibilities that I hadn't conceived of.
True.
And take it one step more, like on Surf's Up. Who could plan Chicken Joe's dialogue with AI?
None.
Because
I
I
don't
didn't
think
know what he
anyone
was
could.
going to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
next.
True.
So all the improvisations that he had, that is his comedy timing, his knowledge, his charm, you wouldn't have that unless you went a sort of a roundabout way to get it out of a machine. Now, maybe there's a time when computers are actually conscious that you can talk to the computer and get that. Until that time, why am I wasting time on something that's not conscious when I should be talking to a conscious person that will give me performance? And that's why we hand out Academy Awards to great actors, and it's why we love great things, you know?
Yeah.
So
I agree with all that.
That to me seems logical. Somebody else can come along and say, oh no, you just press this button and the computer will make you a coffee at the same time. I don't know. Then there is another worse than that.
All right. Oh, tell me.
In Hollywood, a well-known company just decided that they were going to use AI for storyboards. Now there's a social issue with this that I would rant about forever, and you will tell what my political spectrum is about when I say that. But the actual crafting of storyboards is exactly, if not completely, like I was just saying. When I launch story artists, and particularly because of the budgets and the constraints that we're on with independent movies, I will draw up a scene description that tells you where we've come from, what the character's gone through, other characters they might meet, and give a brief character description. I will tell you what the turning point of the scene is in this. I will tell you where we are and what's going on. I will give you absolutely as much as an actor should have when they step onto a stage and it's dressed.
Yeah. Okay.
And I will tell you, like, you know, a Trevor Nunn will work with the actors to say, I want this to happen. Now, if you just press A for automatic and the script somehow it goes through AI and spits out the other end, you'll get that. But that has never, ever what any of the great animation studios I've worked with, the great story artists I've been lucky enough to be familiar with.
Hmm.
No, that sounded wrong. To be with, working with. I was never familiar with them. No,
No, fair enough. Fair
cancel
enough.
that. The it's what they bring to the picture, just
Mm.
like the actor will. It's the
It's
stuff that you can't dictate when you first go into it. I've heard people before saying, all you need to do is come up with a great script and make it. All this, screwing around with
yeah.
different story ideas and whatnot.
I mean,
But
even I
that
know.
is animation. That
Mm.
is feature animation, particularly,
Yeah.
you know.
Even I
So
know the whole make a great script. It'll turn out it'll turn out
it'll
great.
turn out
Hey,
shit.
it,
Is
it
what it will.
doesn't.
It'll
It
be flat
doesn't.
as a pancake.
I make
Because
scripts for my videos all the time, like with you. It does not work out ever.
we have to talk.
Oops! Oh no.
No, but it's when you're writing it yourself and you're
Yeah,
making it yourself, you know the intention, you know what you're
yeah.
going for.
As you
So
said,
it's
it's
already you see pictures in your head.
Hmm.
When you're an executive and you've got your script from the much harangued writer and you stick it into the computer and it spits out boards the other end,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not going to know. They're not going to know if it's good or bad.
As
And
you said,
sometimes it will be good.
it's more nuanced than anything else, right? Because
Well, it's nuanced, but it's a little bit broader. The
yeah,
nuance definitely with vocal approaches,
yeah,
but with storyboards, it's everything.
mm.
You know, some
Like
um,
culture, heritage, living experiences,
it's
every
everything.
day.
It's that living,
Exactly.
breathing artist that is in front of the computer, and I don't. I'm not. I'm not a Luddite. I like what computers can do,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
but this aspect is really executives deciding that they'll make it cheaper if they
Mm.
don't go through story artists, and they will. Let's have a look at the profits at the end of that.
Yeah,
And what they will do, I
yeah.
assure
I
you,
know.
is they'll spit it out of the computer and they'll come up with whatever, right? And then they'll go, let's bring in a story artist. Whoops, let's bring in a story artist to work on this a little.
Mm.
And then what we'll see in the
Yeah,
movie, if it comes out, is the story artist work. We won't see. This is a little bit like
yeah.
like motion capture in live action.
Oh, don't get me started on that. I despise. I I despise. Look, I like some motion capture. Don't get me wrong, but like when it's all live action, it just irks me. Like,
No, and that's like when the folks, some folks who are working at
mm,
Weta, and look, I'm not knocking. I think the company is genius.
yeah,
I think Jackson's genius. I love his attitude and I love his work. But Gollum wasn't motion capture all the way through.
yeah,
They
yeah.
brought
I
in
saw.
animators to
Yeah,
take it and modify it.
mm,
Probably would have been easier if they'd started without having to take whatever was
mm,
motion capture and drive it forward.
mm,
But it's a good story for the
mm.
media, isn't it?
Don't get me wrong. Like they do a lot of work, the
Yeah,
performers to do all that.
yeah,
But it's like I'll give you a big example of my irk, which is like Planet of the Apes. I
yeah,
despise it. But if you go watch Charlton Heston's, like I love the effort they put into the costumes. Right?
yeah.
You may look at it and be like, that's a bit weird, those
No,
costumes.
no,
But
I
it's
know
like
it well, and I
but
know the
like
differences.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. He makes a good performance. The actors with him make an absolute fantastic performance. It's just like I don't think you can capture that in motion capture as well as like those older
I'm a
films.
much bigger fan of practical effects.
Yes, exactly.
Honestly, although then you look at some of the stuff they did for the Spider-Man movies, where
Mm.
all that swinging around, it's good for certain things.
Yes, for sure.
That a cyber version of Maggie Smith, bless her, would not be better than Maggie Smith.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, it's getting better and better, and it also depends on budget, and I think that's another big deal for
Yeah.
us. Though it's
Yeah.
like that at a time where Hollywood is quite reticent to look at newer things, or they get comfortable with the same old executive ideas of, oh well, animals are not in vogue, so we don't want to make another animal movie until
Mhm.
somebody makes an animal movie that does really great, and then suddenly everything's animals again, and they'll be saying, yeah,
True.
we don't do humans anymore.
True.
Honestly, I viewed it over again throughout my career, and I
Yep.
can say that now that it's nearly been 40 years. So yeah.
Well, we'll start to wrap up here. We'll because it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I really hope.
Same for me. I really enjoyed talking with you.
I mean, I hope to get you back for a part 2 at some point.
Anytime,
If you're
anytime you
keen.
like.
We'll finish off with if you could give any piece of advice to someone in my shoes or a younger audience who wants to delve into either the creative industry in any way. I consider directing as like part of the creative industry. If you could give any advice, what would that be to help people pursue their dream?
It's really hard
Yeah,
because you always
got him.
come off as you know, an arrogant bugger, and what I've done and the luck that I've had, I can't point at a recipe to replicate that because luck comes from somewhere else. But always be ready for opportunities.
Okay.
I think.
I mean, that's still, even if it's a short sentence.
Myself, which you know, but be ready for opportunities. That's real. That's really luck.
Yeah.
Be bolder than you might feel comfortable with.
Okay.
To approach people who are higher up in the business and say, you know, I'd really like to do this. And be passionate, be truthful.
Yep.
But you know what? It's almost like every individual is going to have a different question, and there would be a different answer. So
I agree with that.
If you ever want to do a Q&A, let me know.
Done.
Be more helpful.
Done. I got you. I'll do a Q&A. I mean, this was already a Q&A anyway. Doesn't matter. No, thank you so much, Chris. Chris Jenkins, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tarkan.
Pleasure. Peace out. Peace out.
Pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Big thank you to Chris once again for that fantastic interview. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you on the podcast. I've had so far a really good journey interviewing a lot of greats in the creative industry, and Chris just adds to that. I'm currently unsure what Chris is working on at the moment, because normally I'd promote a section towards the end of the video on please go follow his links here. He is a director after all, so it's probably all hush-hush until a movie comes out. Here is now a video of me getting scammed by a claw machine just for a penguin plushie. I hope to work with you again in the future, Chris. It's been an absolute journey. Alright, so now it's just me updating just everything going on with the channel. Sorry it's been taking so long to get videos out there. I've had a lot of stressful stuff going on in my life, and it doesn't help that I have recently had to have my cat's eye taken out because he's had cancer. So that's a feels bad. Here's a photo. Boom. That's a photo. He's so cute. He's so adorable. And he's so old too. Hopefully from here on out, because he's almost healed up, I can get videos out a bit more faster. My next interview will hopefully be out soon, and it will be the return of our first guest, Kevin Maurer. I've attached my links down below if you want to catch me when I start streaming again, because I've been on pause. I've also attached my VFX channel artist as well, because he does some really good content and artwork, so please check him out as well. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.